All right, guys, welcome back. This is episode 3. Well, no, it's our second episode, but it's week 3 of Dana White's Contender series. So, Brandan, Pierce, welcome back, everybody. We got some making up to do.
Yeah, it was a rough week last week. I think honestly, I went 0 for 5 on my predictions, but it's just one of those weeks. I mean, Smotherman, chalk it up. Yeah, he got KO'd. We've seen him chinned in the past, but it's hard to tell if that was a bad bet or not because it's like the fight never played out. And then obviously Hardwick let us down. That was unfortunate. And then I will say, I don't mind my bet on Sonmiz last week. That was a grueling fight where it's like I don't know how comfortable people felt having money on a meal at minus 200.
Yeah, I mean, you had to be sweating bullets. So that's the thing. Week 1, I swept. I went 5 for 5. Not only my winners, but my totals as well. So I killed week 1. Couldn't talk a ton about it because it's too close to camp. We just got busy. Then, of course, the first episode that we put out, we get crushed. And it's like, what's the point of are we doing value bets and trying to tell people value bets versus just picking winners, right? There was just a couple things like Ebo Aslan guy, right? You know what makes me feel uncomfortable is like when I see in these discords on Twitter and they're like, every YouTube capper is saying the same thing. And it's like something that I said already and it makes me feel really self-conscious. I'm like, I don't know, man. That's just what I saw on tape. The cardio thing seemed real to me. And then he came out and looked like the real deal. And I felt like an idiot. My point is that like pass on that fight. I think I did end up betting Ebo like right before the fight started, like 10 seconds before the fight started. But when I was really unsure about that one and then the girl fight, I was like, when we're unsure like that, I think that's more of a pass. It's not like we're betting every single one. That's a pass. And then the other thing I think is important too, especially with Contender series, and this is the one thing that messes us up, is seeing the weigh-ins. I think the weigh-ins is super, super, super important. Seeing that big steroided up jacked girl against the little flabby tiny girl, that was a big deal. It really was a big deal. And, we had already said, what was her name? Silva. It was too late to go back on it by the time, the episode had already come out. So,
yeah, also got to watch out for EPL Sawadi. That broke my heart, man. It sucks to see George Hardwick. And you got people online that haven't watched him fight before Contender Series talking trash about him. That's the frustrating part.
Well, and I think that I said that, and I think a few other people said that. Everyone's like, everyone needs to shut up about Hardwick should be straight to the UFC. I still think he should be straight to the UFC. The dude has done a lot. He's beat a lot of good guys. He really is talented and skilled. And the very first thing I said last week, I did not discount Al Sawadi at all. I said, I hate that he has this tough of a matchup on Contender Series. I still thought he was going to win. I thought he was going to win, but I said, Sawadi's really good. We're used to him being minus 1,400 every fight. I just think, skill for skill, I like Hardwick here, but it just felt like Hardwick was afraid to pull the trigger. Whatever the lateral movement of Sawadi was, is like Hardwick could not track him down and he didn't feel comfortable to fight. And Hardwick's going to have a really tough time in a 3-round fight. That dude's a 5-round fighter, which sucks. He's like a Cheeto Vera, right? He's a 5-round fighter. And now you ask him to go 3 with a guy who's not going to get tired. That's tough. That's really tough ask.
Yeah, well, we got another Cage Warriors guy this week, so let's see if they can put it on for Graham Boylan and company.
All right, so let's get into this. This week, and I gotta apologize, guys, if I look like I'm not paying attention. It's because Pierce's nasally drone is putting me to sleep. No, I'm just kidding. We're watching Fury FC. It's Sunday. Fury Sundays, baby. All right, so let's kick this one off. The very first fight of the night, we have Luciano Pereira and Felipe dos Santos. Why don't you go ahead and you kick this one off this week?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, with Luciano Pereira, those of y'all that are familiar with like Aileen Perez and Francisco Prado, he represents Samurai Fight House, which in my opinion, it's not the most high level promotion. I think it's in Uruguay or Argentina, one of the two, but it's like you just look at Pereira's fights, it's hard to really tell how good is it. I mean, actually, no, I can't tell. His opponents aren't that good. Pereira, I mean, I'll give him credit. He does look like he has the depth touch, which for flyweight can go a long way. But at the end of the day, he's 5'3". He's got pop in his hands. But then if you go on their Instagram page for Samurai Fight House, you find his fight with this Ziller guy. And it just goes to show like how Luciano Pereira, his grappling is a big deficiency in his game. And I feel like in that fight in particular, he had a lot of instances where he was stuck on the cage, stuck on the mat, and he didn't really work to get out of position. And in this matchup, I mean, Felipe dos Santos, he's a Brazilian shoot box Diego Lima guy. And I mean, he represents that style well. He's just pressures forward. He can take a shot to give one. And if you look at his fight with Hugo Paiva, I mean, that's a great fight to watch back for anyone that wants to tape this card. That was fight of the year right there. And that really showed how Felipe dos Santos, he's willing to swim in the deep end. And I guess you kind of have to go with Santos solely on the fact that he's fought the better opposition. He's not fighting guys that are 0-1, 1-1, 1-0 on Samurai Fight House. He's fighting good enough guys. I wouldn't say his competition's like high level except for his last fight, but and he goes for double leg takedowns too. I feel like that's going to separate him in this fight, is that he has the ability to mix in takedowns on Luciano. And it's like, I feel like Felipe is going to get a first round submission at a high clip. Maybe I'm in over my head and he gets bonked in the first round like Cameron Smotherman, but it's hard not to side with Felipe, man. I think he's a good spot here. Minus 260, maybe not the best odds, but I think he's going to start the night off well for Team Brazil.
Yeah, I've had pretty good luck capping these. I hate saying capping, but I've had pretty good luck betting on or against these shooter box fighters, right? We had that one kid who was like a
Mateus Mendonça.
No. I'm talking about the guy that got knocked out by Amari Sangzava. He was a shooter box kid. He's really tall, like Asian Brazilian kind of guy, right? He got KO'd. And then Mateus, right? We're really good at Mateus fights, win and lose. I like this kid. That last fight against Paiva was fucking bananas, right? Being a flyweight fighter myself, sometimes I watch fights like that and I go, dude, I need to choose something different. That shit's crazy. The pace that they kept, how hard they were swinging, the skill in that fight. Now let's start with Pereira. Yeah, Pereira. First of all, the UFC shorts, always a bad, like for whatever reason, it's always a bad look. It just is a bad look. Was it the Kyrgyzstani? I don't even know how to say it. The dude who fought in LFA last week. Everybody was heavy on that under a round and a half. He was wearing the UFC shorts and went to decision with that 40-year-old Brazilian shit can, right? So it's never a good look. The kid is, here's the other thing too, is that flyweight is the smallest division, right? At least in the UFC and in most organizations outside of one. He's small. That's as small as you can get. Like, he might not be cutting weight or might not be cutting much weight. He's a tiny little guy, and that's as low as he can go before he has to go to Asia to go fight really, really small men. His back control is not good. His grappling's not good. His wrestling's not good. I think his only hope here really is a knockout and is to catch him. And the reason that I say that, the biggest problem that I have with Dos Santos, his cardio is good. He's got a decent blast double. He's really long and rangy for the weight class. I think he's 5'6", 5'7". He's
5'7" flyweight, so he's got a massive size advantage here.
Thank you, Pierce. Thank you. I appreciate that. I take that to heart. Thank you. But my issue is when he punches, he squares up. He swings so hard with his right hand, right? Boom. He squares up almost entirely. You see his back foot come even with his front foot, and he's completely square. And that leaves him so open to get hit. And a lot of times he does get hit. He's lucky right now. He's 22 years old and he has a good chin. Someday that's going to really destroy him. And what I worry about is a guy that is 5'3", right? He's got such a short path with his punches. Every time that Dos Santos is stepping forward and just walking him down and swinging, that gives Pereira an opportunity to bonk him. If we're looking skill for skill, oh geez, someone here. If we're looking skill for skill, I really like Dos Santos in this spot. I think he's better. I think his jiu-jitsu is tricky off his back. He does stand up. He's got really good cardio, better decisions, probably just the better physical specimen, especially for the weight class. So I think we're both on Dos Santos. What about violence? You see this fight finishing?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Pereira's last couple fights, or most of his pro fights, they don't really make it out of the first round. It's most of the time it's him just knocking his opponents out. But I guess I say at the end of the day, he's fighting low-level guys, so it's like we don't know what he's going to – I mean, he did face some adversity in the Ziller fight, but he did a good job surviving there. But I tend to think that the under – it just depends on the price, because I feel like they're going to open a 1.5 and it's not going to be worth it.
And the problem is this is a flyweight fight, right? And flyweight fights historically, like what was it last year? We went like 7 months without a finish in the flyweight fight since the very first one of the year, and it was only by injury. It was like something crazy like that. So
Yeah, I mean, and then we had the flyweight fight a couple weeks ago, Diaz versus Borjas. Everyone was betting the under, and then that fight went to decision. So just be careful on the flyweight unders.
Yep. All right. Next up, we have Robbie Ring and Luis Pajuelo. I'm going to kick this one off. This seems like this is going to be people's main event this week. This seems like where everybody's drawing the line in the sand. And I'm a big Discord guy now. I'm on a ton of different Discords these days, just perusing. But I've seen a line drawn in the sand on both sides of this fight, right? One is people seeing what I'm seeing. And I think, honestly, the Peru flag is getting a lot of people going crazy on Luis here. They think all Peruvian fighters are built the same, and I don't really think that's true. I think Barzola, Borjas, these guys are different. They have real skill, plus cardio, plus stand-ups, plus a lot of really good things. Where I don't feel that way with Luis here. I think Luis has zero process. I think he just marches forward and just swings, and he does a good job of filling the space and kind of overwhelming with volume. I can see a world where he overwhelms Robbie Ring and he stays in his face. The problem that I see is he has almost next to zero takedown defense at all. And then when he does get back up to its feet, it's because other guys are just falling off the top or making really critical mistakes, and he's just there long enough to not, just to stand up. Robbie Ring, there's a lot I don't like about him, but I think this narrative that his striking is horrible is a little bit overblown. I think it's fine. I don't think he wants to strike. I don't think he needs to strike. I think his path is taking him down and submitting him. His last fight against, so he's got a few fights here that are notable. So one, he fought Jacob Kilburn, and I thought he looked really good in the Kilburn fight, right? He looked like a grown man just throwing Kilburn around, putting him in a lot of submissions. He got caught in a submission towards the end of one, but he looked strong, like farm strong, just throwing him around. Then his very next fight against Joshua Del Gadillo, I thought he looked horrible. I thought he got thrown around. He got treated like a little boy and got lucky to catch a triangle. But one thing he is he's tricky. He throws up a lot of submissions. And I think that just means he's a decent control grappler, right? He'll take the back, sink in hooks. He'll go for head and arm triangles, snap downs. I think that's the recipe to beat a guy like Luis, right? Luis is standing up on guys who are purely only wrestling him or taking him down just to stop his pressure, but they don't have a vision of controlling him. For me, it's for me, I think you're getting a good price on the guy who's a little bit more polished fighter and has a little more process in a guy like Robbie Ring, whereas people are just watching Luis stalk people down and swing hard and thinking that's going to melt Robbie when Robbie can wrestle anytime he wants to. I don't think Robbie's a world beater. I think I can't wait to bet against him at the next level here. But for me, that's the play.
Yeah, I kind of share similar thoughts here. It's just with Robbie, he's 22 years old. I believe his pro and amateur career combat sports, he's like 15-0 or something along the lines of that. So he has a lot of experience, but it's like at the end of the day, when you watch Robbie fight, a lot of his fights are first round finishes, early second round finishes. So that's probably would be my only concern on the Robbie side is we don't really know where his cardio is at. But I guess in this matchup, it's like Robbie has a clear grappling advantage. I mean, it's a pretty binary fight. Robbie has a grappling advantage. Luis has the striking advantage. But you see in Luis's fights, he gets taken down almost like every fight. And I mean, I guess he is kind of persistent to work up, but it's like he turns his back. He kind of makes a lot of mistakes in the grappling where a good submission artist would exploit those. And it's like, it's hard with Robbie because, like I said, the cardio and his level of competition isn't the highest level. I guess the Kilburn fight is probably his best win, but we saw him in that fight in the first round. He jumped for a leg lock and almost got stuck in an arm triangle choke. Luckily, he got saved by the bell, but you don't want to be making those mistakes against Luis, because if you give Luis a chance to get in top position or just give him a chance on the feet where Robbie's not shooting takedowns, Luis is going to put the pressure on him. He's not the most technical. He kind of reminds me of back in the day on Contender Series when we had Genaro Valdez. He just swings for the fences with no real process. But
yeah, squared up, swinging at you.
Yep. Yeah, but I guess that style can win fights on people that are flaky, and it's like it's hard to tell if Robbie's flaky because I mean, I've seen in a couple of his fights, he's scrappy. He's not against throwing in the pocket, but I guess you just have to go with the grappling edge here. I mean, I'll look at the odds. I think Robbie's he's minus 130 right now. I think and it's a generous price tag on Robbie, but like I said, there's a lot of unknowns with his cardio. But maybe look to take a flyer on his submission prop because I feel like he has a massive grappling edge here.
And it seems like that's all he goes for. Do you know who this kid reminds me of?
No.
Oh, geez. Trevor Loken, for some reason.
But hopefully he doesn't get knocked out like Trevor Loken.
Yeah, but Trevor Loken looked good in his first bare knuckle fight. He reminds me of him because it's like his striking isn't good, but he's just gonna like wear on you and hang on you and just be kind of fucking annoying. Sorry guys, I'm watching Fury right now, and Nick Compton is going life or death here. 42-year-old Nick Compton, bad boy.
And I guess I will also note for this fight, you mentioned it, we got two Iridium guys here, so that's interesting that they're putting two guys from the same agency against each other.
Well, here's the deal, man. Here's the deal with the agencies. As it was explained to me, Iridium signs everybody. And when they have two guys that are fighting each other, that means they're guaranteed a win bonus, right? It's because it's fight and win. So they're all about percentages. They're all about money. So when they have two guys that are fighting each other, they're guaranteed two salaries and one win bonus all the time. Whereas if they're fighting someone else, it's only one. So, yeah, I mean, yeah. I think they know the deal here. They know the winner. If I could get a hold of one of those little guys, I better ask. All right. Next up, we have. Oh, geez, I'm on freaking Robbie's. Isis Forbeek versus Josephine Nutsen. What do you got on this one?
Yeah, so looking at the odds for this one, we got minus 260. Josephine Nutsen comeback on Isis is plus 200, and I mean, it sucks in this matchup because I feel like both these girls are UFC caliber and they're putting them up against each other. So one of them's got to lose. But when I look at this matchup, I mean, it's a classic striker versus striker here. We got Nutsen, who's probably the bigger name in the MMA scene. She trains out of All Stars in Sweden, so that's a good gym. And she's been putting on good performances, man. I mean, I like her striking. She's got a high volume, and she will occasionally mix in some trip takedowns from the Muay Thai clinch. But overall, she's not really looking to grapple too heavy. It's a lot of her just getting girls in the pocket, really hurting them with those knees up close. And I like her game, man. But it's just when you look at this matchup, you got Isis Forbeek. She's representing Team Biggie Boy, and she doesn't have an Instagram, which is a bit annoying. So it's hard to really keep up to date what she's where she's training at. But she's kind of like, it seems like a similar matchup here. I mean, I know Nutsen's probably the more polished fighter. She's probably more well-rounded, but Isis Forbeek, she's willing to scrap too. I like her toughness. She seems like one of these rare women MMA fighters that likes to throw down in the pocket. And I mean, she's got good kickboxing in her own right too. And she was a glory kickboxer as well. I think she had like a record, might be reaching, but I think it was like 55 and like 10 or something along the lines of that. So she has a lot of experience in the striking, but when you want to know what her holes are in her game, it's the grappling. We saw in her pro loss, I believe it was the Paprocki, if I'm correct.
Good God.
Yeah, Catherine Paprocki. That was her first pro fight. She got taken down, and she kind of did look like a fish off her back. So if I'm nuts in here, I'm probably looking to go for takedowns, but it's hard to really trust her at minus 260 to be landing takedowns for the whole fight when she really doesn't do that in a lot of her fights. She's mainly a striker, and I mean, if you're giving me plus 200 on two women's MMA high-level strikers, the plus 200 is calling my name, but I feel like prediction's sake, I feel like Nutsen's going to do enough to win, but the value's on Isis.
Here's the deal with this one. The value is 100% on Isis for me, and here's why. Cat Paprocki is awful. Okay, she is awful. And I remember watching that fight, not for Isis back in the day, but watching for a Cat Paprocki fight. I think it was maybe when she fought Contender Series or one of these fights. And I remember like watching that fight going, who the hell is Isis Forbeek? Isis is pretty fucking clean, like looks like an athlete, like super fucking clean. And Cat Paprocki, she bites down on that mouthpiece. She takes a bump and she drives forward and she just gives it everything she has. She's a little engine that could. And that style is really hard, especially against glory kickboxers who are known for being so clean and precise. And it's a very different game, right? That kind of stuff just grinds you the fuck out. And it's just weird, right? The thing I'm seeing with Josephine Nutsen is she's very technical. She's very clean. She wants to stay on the outside and be beautiful. So now what we have is a kickboxing match. And you can take the shorter girl that's got really short arms that throws really loopy punches and switch kicks with a little setup, or you can have the Glory Kickboxer, the Dutch Glory Kickboxer. And for me, I think that Verbeek is cleaner. The only thing I don't like about Verbeek is how she constantly is circling her back against the cage. She's kind of counter fighting and point fighting with the back against the cage. I would love to see her come forward and her put it on, throw some leg kicks, throw some stuff advancing. That would make me feel a lot better, just styles of fights. But Nutsen wants to be clean and beautiful. Thing that scares me is every single person that I've heard is on Verbeek here, which concerns me. And the same thing last week. So on the podcast, Big Pod last week, I chose Morose. I'm a big Karine Silva hater. I saw everybody on Morose, and I was like, well, man, I've been down this road way too many times before. And then I switched back to Karine Silva. I don't think that's the case here. Watching Nutsen's last fight, it was really close. First of all, that girl, Jacinta Austin, can we get her on Contender Series? That chick's a beast. That chick is really good.
I know some people might bring up that was a close fight, but Jacinta Austin, she's doing her thing in Octagon right now. I bet her in her last fight. She's going to be a name to look out for too. So going to a close fight with her, I don't hold anything against that.
No, not at all. That's what I'm saying. That's two high level girls. And then on the flip side, Isis Verbeek, was it a split with Melissa Odessa Parker?
I believe it was it was a unanimous decision, but it was
very close. A very close fight. So Melissa Odessa Parker, at one point I thought she was the one, right? Because she's a really good boxer for women's standards. She was a really good boxer. And what was so unique about her is the second that she felt uncomfortable on the feet, which is weird that she would, because she's way more athletic than everybody she's fought, she would grapple heavy. And she really had a tough time trying to get Isis down. She couldn't. And that girl's very big, very physical, very good hands. She closes in on the pocket, and she made Verbeek kind of uncomfortable in the way that she fought. And Verbeek passed with flying colors. Great inside leg kicks, great counters. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at this fight, right, so many people bitch about women's favorites. Well, here's your opportunity in a very close fight. Honestly, a fight that I would probably line Verbeek maybe minus 120. I think it's a pretty close fight, but now you have plus 200 on Verbeek. So I think that's the spot for me.
I mean, I will add in the Melissa Odessa Parker fight, how many girls are you seeing hitting jumping switch knees and dropping opponents? Not many. She seems dynamic for a women's MMA.
Yeah, she's clean. Now, I will say, okay, one last thing. There was something in the lead up to that fight, to the Melissa Odessa Parker fight. So I chose her as an underdog, but there was something that I saw on her social medias. I can't remember what it was, where I was like, this girl is not serious about fighting. She's doing this for whatever it is, and she's not serious about fighting. There was something, I can't remember what it was, but that was my only mental note about that fight. I hope her mentality or whatever it was has switched here, because I think this is a good spot. Two people that want to be pretty and clean. Give me the taller, longer, more precise striker. I'll take Verbeek at dog money.
Yeah, I just have a feeling it might be one of those fights where we made the right bet, but we lose this split decision. But we'll see. I like the value on Verbeek. I can't hate plus 200 at all.
Alrighty, next up we have Mr. Oban Elliott and Kike Brito. All right. One of us I'm gonna have to break this one open, man.
Yeah, go for it.
We love us some Oban. Is this true?
Oban has done me right for the past 4 fights, so I can't disagree.
We are Oban lovers, and I think I was probably one of the earliest guys to catch on to Oban. Let me see. Let's pull up his little. Let's pull up his little record here. Oh, did I just get off it? Okay. So. Yep. So my very first bet again on Oban was against George McManus back in 2021. Yep. And he was a favorite there. And then I lost on him against Madars Flaminis. And then it was a pretty weird close line with Herkus Laka. That fight went easy. And then I think he was an underdog to Matt Bonner. Sean McCormick, he was a big favorite, but man, that was justified. McCormick is horrible. And then the Sheehan, was he an underdog to Sheehan?
Yeah, I remember betting him. He was like plus 130 for that fight.
Yeah, and honestly, it was that's a stud matchup right there. Sheehan versus Oban is a stud matchup. I'm very, very high on Sheehan. The guy can grapple. The guy's got really good kickboxing. He's game. He doesn't quit. good cardio. Like that was a stud matchup. And that really, I think that fight was the one who's going to Contender Series, if we're being honest. Now I'm watching these two guys, and Oban had to switch his entire style, right? His style before the Madar's fight was, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to bite down on my mouthpiece. I'm going to swing big haymakers, and I'm going to fucking murder you. And after he lost that fight, right, he gassed out, just a guy that could counter grapple him and didn't die. And he gassed out pretty bad and got beat. He had to change his style. He had to be a lot smarter with his style. And the Oban we see now is cautious on the feet. He's in and out. He finds a spot for the takedown, and then he has really good control for the rest of the fight. And I love Oban as a fighter. The problem here is that I think Contender Series is gearing towards the guys that are a little bit more exciting. And Brito is a very good striker. He really is clean on the feet. He's got a great body, long range. He's precise. He's got good kicks. And even when he goes to the ground, he does get taken down. I don't know about easily. You still have to work for the takedown a little bit, right? These guys who are taking him down, they're bull rushing him. I don't care if you're 50 years old or you're 15 years old. These guys are shooting a hard blast double, and it is what it is. The one thing with Kike is he's active off his back, right? He's throwing up submissions. He's one of those really wormy, squirmy guys, and it's very frustrating. And a lot of times, even for the judges, that kind of stuff is earning points, right? You think about Charles Oliveira on his back. He's always earning points by throwing up some kind of submission, and it opens him up to stand up. Again, this is like Benny Dariush and Charles Oliveira for me. I think Oban, for him to win this and win this convincingly, he has to put together a really tough 15 minutes. He's going to have to wrestle hard and put together a solid 15 minutes, whereas Brito can win at any moment, right? And he's going to win with big moments on the feet. He's going to look explosive. He's going to look good. My heart really says Oban. Like, if we didn't have a shitty week last week, I would say Oban for sure. Like he is the side. But because the week was so bad last week, and I'm looking at styles and I'm looking at everything, I'm almost thinking Brito is the side, just for the flair that he does, the excitement, the big strikes. And the last thing is Oban's chin is up all the time. As he's in, as he's out, his chin is always up in the air. Man, I hate to say it, because realistically, a Brazilian with bad takedown defense against a guy who has really good control on top seems like an auto bet for me, especially at underdog odds. No, I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go Oban here. I think the grappling spread is a lot farther than the striking spread is between the two. So I'm going to stick with Oban.
Yeah, I'm probably going to side with you as well. When we look at the odds, it's minus 160 for Kike Brito, plus 130 for Oban Elliott. And this is kind of a fight where I just feel like a pick'em's an appropriate line for this matchup. I mean, for Brito, you see in a lot of his fights, he's very exciting. He likes to throw down. I will say he, for as good of striking offense he has defensively, he leaves himself open a lot in the pocket. And I do like his range. I don't know how they're going to size up at the weigh-ins, but Brito seems like a long guy for the welterweight division. He's got a good 1-2. I wish he would kick more. I feel like he's more boxing heavy with the hands, and if he would use his kicks, that would maybe be a good weapon here, as Oban can be a little heavy on his front legs.
He's very bladed like a boxer, and that's why he eats so many kicks.
Yeah, but Oban striking, while it's not necessarily the best, you have seen a progression in it in the past couple fights. He does a better job now than he did earlier in his career against Figlak and Flaminas at blending in his striking with the wrestling. I feel like that's something he's improved on a lot. And while some people might be hesitant to bet another Cage Warriors guy after last week, I feel like Oban's a lot different. This is not British wrestling. This is Welsh wrestling. He's Jack Shore Army, training at a good gym. What is it? Shore Academy, Martial Arts? Yeah, that's the right gym. But he has that Welsh style. He's just willing to just drag you into the deep end with constant takedowns. And I guess this fight really does come down to, does Oban's cardio hold up? Because in his losses against Flaminas and Figlak, the cardio has been an issue. And it's not talent. It's whether he can put together 15 minutes of constant wrestling. And it's like when you look at Brito, I find he's fun to watch. But the one fight that really made me hesitant in this matchup is the Peter Nyes fight. Well, Peter Nyes has a good record on paper. That dude was 44 years old when he took the fight. And I believe this was only 2 years ago. Yeah, it was a little less than 2 years ago, and he's getting taken down by Peter Nyes. Arguably, Brito should have won the fight, but he's got this slow, rigid 44-year-old man that's taking him down, and Brito was settling on his back with this guy. And it's like, yeah, he has decent jiu-jitsu. He'll throw up some arm bars and some triangles and leg locks, but against Open, you don't want to be playing jiu-jitsu. You want to be working to get back up on the feet. And it's like, you said it perfectly. The striking's competitive. Obviously, you favor Brito because he has the fight end in power. I can't ignore that. But it just seems like Open's path to victory has a higher likelihood of him looking like the favorite in this matchup. And I will say, I know we've been following Open for a while. You remember how when Jack Shore had a podcast, he would talk about how Open has all the talent. He was just mentally, he was a head case. And it really does seem like, I've been listening to Open's interviews, he's been putting it together. He's been more focused. It seems like he has less distractions going on in his life. And I feel like this is his time to shine. He's only 25 years old, if I'm correct, too.
Yeah, I also think that the weight cut was a big deal for him too. You look at him. I was just watching his last fight. He's thick. He's a thick boy. To make 155 is tough, and I thought he was going to be really undersized once he went to 170. But man, he filled out nice. He's a thick boy. I think that weight cut was really bad for his cardio.
Yeah, I'll also add, we don't have props yet, but if they open a 1.5, I feel like that's clearly the side. Because Open, while he does get finished in his losses, a lot of that is due to him getting tired. I wouldn't say he has bad durability at all, although Brito can crack. I feel like Open's one of those dudes where he's just going to bite down on the mouthpiece if he's going through adversity and just wilt through it.
All right, so that's going to take us to the main event. We have, this has got to be a slam spot. We got Eli Arnonov versus Zachary Reese. I think it's your turn. I think you're up, and I'm sad about it because I would have loved this one, but go ahead. What you got?
No, I'll let you go first because it seems like you have more convicted thoughts than I do.
Yeah, see, I don't love Zachary Reese. Watching him, someone was like, man, his striking is phenomenal. And watching his most recent fight, I was like, man, he's just really Muay Thai and very square, and he's kind of slow and everything comes really wide. I wasn't super impressed with it. Actually watching back a few fights, let me see, which fight was it? So Zachary Reese is a Fury FC guy. You know, we love Fury. He beat Aaron Phillips, who just actually, while we're watching this doing this podcast, who just won 33 seconds. It's hard to say how that fight would have played out, but his fight against Harir Zolfagari, man, Zach looked freaking good in that fight. Wow, his striking looked beautiful. His cutting angles, he was precise, he's pinpoint. He looked great. And then you have Eli Arnonov. Okay, he's 6-0. He's a wrestler. Very strong looking guy, man. He looks like a freaking ox if he gets a hold of you. Okay, so here's the way that I look at this fight. This is a traditional old matchup. It's a striker versus a grappler or wrestler, I should say. The reason that this line is close, or that isn't Eli the favorite?
No, so he was the favorite, but now money's come on Reese. Reese is about minus 130 to Eli plus 100.
Oh, okay. Bummer, because I was going to smack this play. I still probably will. But Eli beat, Jesus Christ, these names. Marizes, Kazalaka, and that guy's good. I bet him huge in his last LFA fight. The guy's actually good. You look at his record, it's good. It's probably the most legit guy that either one of them has beat. Took him down, mauled him, went for a submission. It was all done. That guy fought the worst fight ever. Didn't try to get up. Maybe he was just getting held. He may be the best guy that either one of them has beaten, but man, he didn't do anything. He just laid there and he was like anybody else. He was just a body. Second round comes out, they start back up on their feet, and he rocks the dude, drops him, and then starts a grappling exchange, and then gets, reversed, trying to go for a guillotine, goes to his butt, the guy gets on top. And I think Zach is a lot different. I think Zach's got the swagger. I think Zach's got the striking to keep things dangerous. I think Zach has had how many months to prepare for a guy that he knows is just going to come out, bite down on his mouthpiece, and just blast double, right? It's not a hard style to beat. We've seen that. Jeez, with Sean O'Malley and Aljo, what did I freaking say? Like, we had so many people comment on the video, you guys are so stupid. You guys are retarded. It's like, guys, we know he's going to do one thing. So let me train for this one thing, and then I'll pick him apart in the little intricacies in the other areas. And I feel like that's the Zach Reese fight. Is Eli's going to try to blast double him? He better work. He better do something, because if Zach Reese gets up for 5 seconds and punches him, he's going to win the round. So just by judging and scoring criteria, but also just by the chin, just by the skills, like I think Zach Reese is good. And that's even with a question mark on his wrestling. Who knows? Eli can come out, take him down and sub him. But I think the UFC knows what they're doing, especially lining these two guys up on a show that's about finishes and that's about excitement. Why would they get a guy that's not exciting and not a lot of finishes and just a bowling ball versus a guy that's all finishes and all exciting? For me, it's got to be Zach Reese on this one.
Well, I guess to add on to that, maybe they're trying to boost the Israeli market for MMA. I think this would be the third fighter from Israel that could make the UFC if Arnonov were to win. But I wasn't as convicted on you as Reese. But hearing you talk about it, it's kind of like I understand the thought process there. Because when I first started watching the Eli tape, it had to be from like, this was like 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, he was fat. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy sucks. This guy sucks. But I guess in his last fight against Marus, I'll just say his first name, he didn't look bad in that fight. He did look like he lost some weight, so I'll give him that. Maybe he's on a new Flintstone vitamin program. But, I mean, Eli, they say he has he wrestled Greco-Roman nationally for Israel. I don't know what that is supposed to mean, but this is a pretty binary matchup. We got the Greco-Roman wrestler versus, I mean, Reese's grappling's not bad in himself, too. It's just when you watch his fights, it's all quick finishes, first-round finishes. We just don't know what his cardio is going to look like. That's my biggest concern with Reese. But he's a big guy for this weight class. I think it's like 6'3" versus 5'10", and I can only assume the reach is probably going to be like 5 or 6 inches. Because Reese, I mean, he's a good striker, but like you said, he looked good in some of his fights. It's just like it's hard to take away because it's like he's not fighting good fighters. It's like very low-level dudes, but it is the middleweight regional scene, so it's not the most talent you can choose from. But he's handling his opponents like he should, and I honestly like his submission game. He's got sneaky front chokes. I've seen in a couple of his amateur fights, he'll throw a triangle off his back. He's pretty active in his guard, but if Zach can honestly not settle on the mat and make Arnonov work up to the feet, I feel like he has a massive striking advantage where Eli, he's not like a horrible striker. He's willing to throw in the pocket, but like he leaves himself really open. And it's like if Reese can time like one of those knees up the middle or just one of those elbows in close, he could find the knockout here. But I will say, the way this fight is looking, I feel like the under's probably a lot safer than picking a money line side. But I guess, I don't know. Maybe Eli can make it a boring decision, but it's hard not to think that Zach's probably going to find a first-round finish here. Minus 130, I mean, it seems about maybe there's a little value on Zach, but it's like at the end of the day, I don't know what he looks like on bottom or how his takedown defense looks, but Eli might just be a fraud. I'm still not sure how good he is.
Yeah, you're right. We're oops. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Yep. It's kind of like we're betting into the unknown here. And honestly, and that's the big leap of faith, right? I told, we talked about this as like, I don't love betting the UFC much anymore. Like it's just so hard and there's so many factors and things going on. But a lot of times with regionals, even with bare knuckle and everything, we're betting into the unknown. A lot of times we're devoid of film. We don't have a complete library of things that we get to see. And we have to bet into the unknown. We have to go, dude, I don't know. How is his wrestling? I don't know. That front choke looked pretty high level. Like he's got to have some sort of grappling. We're betting into the unknown, how each of their cardios are. Like we're betting into the unknown on so many things. And that's what betting is. I mean, I guess, but I think minus 130 is still value on Reese. But yeah, I think unders is probably the best play for this one.
I mean, you just look at Reese, man. I feel like he's definitely probably the A side being brought in. I feel like if for Eli, I mean, maybe he could be decent at the UFC, but it's like Zach has a more fan-friendly style, and he's an Iridium guy as well. I don't know how much merit that holds, but yeah, Zach's definitely the side in the main event, man. This line kind of reminds me of Joe Pyfer's fight he had a couple years ago, similar odds, and it's like they got this middleweight prospect going into the main event, and he just smashes, and Reese could do the same thing.
Yep. All right, guys, that's another one in the books. Let's hope this week goes a little bit better than last week. Yeah, we got to bounce back. And sometimes this shit gets tough. I don't bet every fight, and I don't think you can. Like, there's just so much unknowns. Like we just said, betting into the unknowns. is tough, right? These investment firms that buy stocks and trade stocks, they're not just doing it without zero research, right? They spend time and energy, and it's a lot of factual data that's going to go into these. And the same has to be for for picks, for betting stuff. And you have to have reason and evidence. And sometimes when we don't have that evidence, it's really tough, and we're literally gambling. That's all it is. So, alrighty, Pierce, thank you so much for hopping on, man. Thanks for doing the research. And guys, let's hope this one goes good. All right, see you next week.
All right, peace.